Okay, here in this video, Obama and who, the real president of the United States, the real president who from China. Yeah, since China owns America anyhow, but just the same, we all know he's here. And I got this little speech that Obama just told, okay? Yeah. Made me laugh when I heard Obama say this. It really did. It made me laugh, so I figured I'd put this together for you. Let you check it out. And anybody that believes what fell out of Obama's mouth, if you believe that, you understand that down here in Florida we have some Rocky Mountain property. And you can believe that too, okay? Because it's nonsense, but just the same. This is the propaganda put in your face. And for the people, for the sheep out there that believe this, okay, that actually believe that Obama's any better than any of the rest, and he's going to do something for you. He is going to do something for you, but it's not going to be what you want. Yes, he promised you change, okay, but he didn't tell you what that change was. Okay, but just the same, I'll put this together for you. Check this out. And leave your opinions and comments to the next video. You all have a good one.
I reaffirmed America's fundamental commitment to the universal rights of all people. And that includes basic human rights like freedom of speech, of the press, of assembly, of association and demonstration, and of religion. Rights that are recognized in the Chinese Constitution. As I've said before, the United States speaks up for these freedoms and the dignity of every human being. Not only because it's part of who we are as Americans. We do so because we believe that by upholding these universal rights, all nations, including China, will ultimately be more prosperous and successful. So today, we've agreed to move ahead with our formal dialogue on human rights. We've agreed to new exchanges to advance the rule of law. I reaffirmed America's fundamental commitment to the universal rights of all people. And that includes basic human rights like freedom of speech.
What Fox Television told us was that we were just the people to be the investigators.
Do any stories you want, ask tough questions, and get answers. So we thought, this is great. This is a dream job. Fantastic. The very first thing they had us do was not to research stories, but to shoot this promo, which was The Investigators.
Uncovering the truth, getting results, protecting you.
And they had a film crew and a smoke machine, and we were silhouetted.
Investigative reporter Steve.
One of the first stories that Jane came up with was the revelation that most of the milk in the state of Florida and throughout much of the country was adulterated with the effects of bovine growth hormone, the artificial hormone that farmers were injecting into their cows so that they would produce more milk.
With Monsanto, I didn't realize how effectively a corporation could work to get something on the marketplace. The levels of coordination they had to have. They had to get university professors into the fold. They had to get experts into the fold. They had to get reporters into the fold. They had to get the public into the fold. And of course the FDA, let's not leave them out. They had to get the federal regulators convinced that this was a fine and safe product to get it onto the marketplace. And they did that. They did that very, very well.
It's a great time to be a high-producing cow. Posilac One Step, bovine somatotropin by Monsanto.
The federal government basically rubber-stamped it before they put it on the marketplace. The longest test they did for human toxicity was 90 days on 30 rats.
Posilac is the single most tested new product in history and is now available to you specifically so you can increase your profit potential.
And then either Monsanto misreported the results to the FDA, or the FDA didn't bother to look in depth at Monsanto's own studies.
The scientists within Health Canada looked very carefully at bovine growth hormone and came to very different conclusions than the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. did.
Monsanto's engineered growth hormone did not comply with safety requirements. It could be absorbed by the body and therefore did have implications for human health. Mysteriously, that conclusion was deleted from the final published version of their report.
They knew there were problems. They saw serious potential human health problems, and they stood up in Canada and said, we're not going to approve this because we don't believe it's safe.
We have been pressured and coerced to pass drugs of questionable safety, including the RBST. I personally was very concerned that there's a very serious problem of secrecy, conspiracy, and things of that nature, and something needs to be done.
The FDA was then on the hot seat. They had to come up with an answer. They didn't come up with a good one. And they never took the opportunity then. I mean, what would they do? Pull it off the market and say we need to now do the job that we didn't do the first time? They didn't do that.
We wrote the story. We had it ready a week beforehand. They bought ads.
Farmers in the milk industry say it's safe, but studies suggest a link to cancer. Don't miss this special report from the investigators.
That Friday night before the Monday this series was to begin, the fax machine spit out a letter from this very high-priced lawyer in New York that Monsanto had hired. It contained a lot of things that were just off the wall false, just demonstrably false. But if you didn't know the story and you didn't know how he had gone about producing it, would have scared you as a broadcaster, as a manager.
And they decided that they would pull the story and they would just check it one more time.
But the bottom line was that there was no factual errors in that story. Both sides had been heard from. Both sides had had an opportunity to speak.
1 week later, Monsanto sent the second letter. And this was even more strongly worded. And it said there will be dire consequences for Fox News if the story airs in Florida. And this time they freaked. They were afraid of being sued, and they were also afraid of losing advertising dollars at all of the stations owned by Rupert Murdoch. And he owned more television stations than any other group in America. That's 22 television stations. That's a lot of advertising dollars for Roundup, aspartame, NutraSweet, and other products.
So we got into a battle. And the first deal was the new general manager.
And his name's Dave. And Dave is a salesman, and, you know, he'd pump your hand. How you doing? How you doing?
Called us upstairs to his office, and he said, what would you say if I killed this piece? What if it never ran? And we said, well, you know, we wouldn't be very happy about that. And he said, well, I could kill it, you know. And we said, yes, of course, you're the manager. You could kill it. It would never air. And he's hemming and he's hawing and he's back and he's forth. And we couldn't figure out, what is this all about? And finally he blurted out, look, would you tell anybody? You know, I said, I'm not going to lie for you. About a week later, calls us back to the office and says, okay, we'd like you to make these changes. In fact, you will make these changes. We said, well, look, let us show you the research that we have that shows that this information you want us to broadcast isn't true. To which he replies, I don't care about that. I said, pardon me? And he said, that's what I have lawyers for. Just write it the way the lawyers want it written. I said, you know, this is news. This is important. This is stuff people need to know. And I'll never forget, he didn't pause a beat, and he said, we just paid $3 billion for these television stations. We'll tell you what the news is. The news is what we say it is. I said, I'm not doing that. And he said, well, he said, if you refuse to present this story the way we think it should be presented, you'll be fired for insubordination. I said, I will go to the Federal Communications Commission and I will report that I was fired from my job by you, the licensee of these public airwaves, because I refused to lie to people on the air. And it's thank you very much. You'll hear from us right away.
Of the press, of assembly, of association and demonstration, and of religion.
Hey, right there. Ma'am, release the accredited journalist now!
From the convention floor.
Violating my constitutional right. You are violating now.
Sir, I want to talk to you.
Arrest him.
Do not arrest me.
Right, sir.
Go right there. He's under arrest. Stay right there. Back up, back up.
Hey guys, if you cross this line, you'll be under arrest, so don't do it.
Amy, we're going to get you out of here very soon. Yes, we have people working on it.
Has a bloody nose, and that Sergeant McKenty said they won't put me on this show if Nicole's not there. And
Rights that are recognized in the Chinese Constitution. As I've said before, the United States speaks up for these freedoms and the dignity of every human being, not only because it's part of who we are as Americans. We do so because we believe that by upholding these universal rights, all nations, including China, will ultimately be more prosperous and successful. So today, we've agreed to move ahead with our formal dialogue on human rights. We've agreed to new exchanges to advance.
Do you have your Constitution?
I have a right to express my opinion.
I don't have any ID. I have the right to ask him to be handled. Why are you asking for his ID, sir? What did he do, sir? Under what grounds? What grounds? Well, he has the right to not show you unless you are charging him for a crime. Unless he has done something wrong, it's his constitutional right to exist without papers.
I reaffirmed America's fundamental commitment to the universal rights of all people. And that includes basic human rights like freedom of speech.
Nowhere in the world today are we more aware of the problems of a people involved in fighting a war than in Vietnam. For here is the rendezvous of all the historical forces in this century.
I've wanted a ticket to history, and it struck me that if you were going to be a witness to history, you wanted to get on a plane to Saigon.
I mean, the whole point of being a reporter is to go where the story is.
It's a matter of information. We don't want to have information which is of assistance to the enemy.
It was very difficult to operate as a reporter because the American press officers were under orders to give out no information at all. We young reporters had to deal with this situation where we were being denounced for writing lies when in fact we were reporting the truth.
It was involuntarily a moment where you were propelled into a conflict that you had not sought with your own government. We have this enormous bond because we really stood and did our job under all this pressure. If the government is telling the truth, reporters become a minor, relatively unimportant conduit. But when the government doesn't tell the truth, then the journalist becomes involuntarily infinitely more important.